So we're joined today by longtime Venable partner Bruce Parker, and who has agreed very generously to be our first interview for this particular section in our newly launched newsletter. Bruce is a member of the American College of Trial Lawyers and has been for many years, which is the premier group of trial lawyers in the country. He is a graduate of Catholic University Law School, where he was number one in his class in 1978. Which followed a very successful academic career at the Johns Hopkins University, from which he graduated with honors in 1975. He has won, as near as I can tell, every award or piece of recognition that anyone in his field could possibly win, including Who's Who legal recognition, LMG Life Sciences Star in 2019 and 20, Best Lawyers in America, including the Lawyer of the Year, it looks like for about 8 years. He's been recognized by Benchmark Litigation. Maryland Defense Council awarded him its John H. Mudd Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018. Chambers has recognized him in mass torts nationwide and pharmaceutical nationwide, which means that they believe he's among the cream of the crop nationwide in both mass torts litigation and pharmaceutical litigation. Expert Guides singles him out, as does Super Lawyers, Legal 500, Law Dragon, and he was recognized with the George W. Yancey Memorial Award by the International Association of Defense Counsel, not once but twice, for the best article published in their Defense Counsel journal. He's done all of that while maintaining an active role in the community as a leader in Cannonball Kids Cancer Foundation, fighting against kids' cancer. He's been a member of the board of directors of Manna House, as well as active in the Lawyers for Civil Justice for the last almost 40 years. So by all measures, a leader at the bar, a leader at the firm, a terrific good partner, which sometimes starts to seem like we say lighthearted, but really to be a good partner at Venable requires a lot of attributes. And Bruce has reflected all of those attributes. And he's generously agreed to sit down with us today to talk a little bit about his career in the hopes of, from my perspective, us memorializing a little bit about it so we don't let it get away from our collective memory, and also to take advantage of some of the lessons that Bruce hopefully can share with us today. So, Bruce, I think for all of us, there was some moment when we decided, I think, at least for those of us who are lawyers at the firm, I would like to be a lawyer. There's a certain calling to it. And for you, what was it that made you want to be a lawyer?
My brother is 8 years my senior, and he was a lawyer, is a lawyer. And so I had a little bit of insight what it means to be, and he's in the litigation field, what it means to be in litigation, but mostly it was driven by my intense desire for competition. I was in organized athletics, 3 sports through graduating from high school, and then 2 sports at Johns Hopkins through my senior year. So winning and losing is part of my DNA, and the competition is something I still relish. And when I looked around for a way to have a professional career, being a trial lawyer was one of those things where the jury says thumbs up or thumbs down, you're winning and losing. And so that's what drew me to it.
It's a pretty binary thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously over the course of a lengthy legal career, it's not always as straight a line as someone may anticipate. How has your career evolved over the years?
Well, I started as a young associate, which here in Baltimore in 78 at one of the then 3, they were basically evenly sized firms, Sims, Bone and Sims, where I joined as a first-year associate, and Venable and Piper were the 3 large firms, although large at that point was 60 lawyers in the firm back in 78. I stayed with them, became a partner at Sims for 2 years, and then a group of us decided that we wanted to practice law in a different way. So 16 of us left Sims in 1988 to start our own firm, Goodell, DeVries, Leach & Gray, and we practiced together for 13 years. The growth of the firm was very rewarding. And in 2001, we just had a philosophical difference as to how that firm takes the next step once you get to 40 people. And a group of us had a different idea, and my mentor, Jim Gray, approached me and said, maybe we would do better at a larger firm. Let's go join Jim Shea, who was an associate with me. We started in the same class at SEMS many years earlier, 10 years earlier. So, no, more than 10, it was since 2001. So Jim kept on talking to us about coming over and joining Venable, and here we came in March of 2001.
Well, it's been a pretty productive 24
4 years.
Holy
Yes.
cow. So, in the course of your career then, that since 78 is the 35 plus years, do you have a case that particularly stands out?
47 years.
47. Holy cow, yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
right.
Okay, 47
You're making me younger.
years. Okay. So in the course of these 47 years, do you have a case that stands out as your favorite case?
Favorite is a word that I'll define in two different ways. I have two cases. One was a terrific win and one was a terrific loss. And the reason why they stand out has to say a lot about what it means to be a trial lawyer. The case that I won, which is a case I'm very proud of, was a case called Celebrity. It was the first case in the silicone breast implant litigation where I was lead trial counsel in the first case of the consolidated California cases going to trial in 1996. And it was the first real disease, meaning it was the first defined medical disease, not the plaintiff's made-up disease called silicone adjuvant disease, SAD, a created acronym that the plaintiff's bar created. In any event, this was a major case because it was the first case of a major disease, autoimmune disease, tried in about 6 weeks over down in San Diego. And it was a resounding win, and we were up against who was at that time considered the dean of the plaintiff's bar in California, in front of a judge who was put us on a time clock. And I don't recall anybody ever being put on a time clock. We actually had stopwatches on our table. He gave us only 30 hours each to present our entire case.
Wow.
And promised us that if we ran out of time, you wouldn't be talking anymore, including a closing argument. So it was a fascinating experience being on a time clock, trying a case of that degree of complexity. The second case is completely opposite. This was a case that I tried in 2014 against then and today considered to be the premier plaintiff's lawyer, Mark Lanier. And it was a case that was an utter disaster from the beginning, in the sense that our client had been determined by the federal judge to have spoliated some 40 or 55 files of senior corporate members. I won't get into her decision, so to speak, but that involved instructions to the jury that we had violated the law and destroying evidence, not the type of thing that you'd want to have told to a jury. But my point is, it was a very contentious case. Twice she referred to the U.S. attorney, two of our witnesses for perjury, and we had to suffer through all that. And we stayed down there for 4.5 months in Lafayette, Louisiana. And I raise this case only because I pat myself on the back saying, I don't know too many other lawyers that would be willing to go through that process and come out on the backside. As people probably or may know, but I'm not embarrassed by it, that case ended with a compensatory verdict of only $1 million in the case of confirmed bladder cancer, but punitive damages of $9 billion against two defendants, Eli Lilly and my client, Takeda Pharmaceuticals. Of course, that was all set aside, and ultimately the litigation resolved. But I raise it only because it convinced me that it took a special degree of confidence in myself, not only to live the 4.5 months down there, but to come back to the practice of law for another 11 years and still be willing to go and try cases after you get that sort of experience.
Right.
So, two very different examples.
Resilience.
Or being foolhardy, I'm not sure what you did.
Sometimes there's a fine line.
That's right.
So over these 47 years, obviously the profession has changed,
Yeah.
and then how we practice law has changed. In your experience at 3 different firms, what have you observed as the greatest, most dramatic changes in the evolution of the practice of law?
2 very different things. One is the speed at which we practiced law. We didn't have cell phones in 1978. We really were just getting copiers instead of the lithograph sort of roll copies. Fax machines had not yet come into play. I don't believe that practice law is any better because of that speed, but clearly clients expect instant answers, and those answers, sadly, are not oftentimes the best thought out answers. But that's the world in which we live. The second thing for the defense bar is when I started practicing, we didn't keep time. As a defense firm, the senior partner would look at the case periodically if there were interim billings, and he would say, well, this case is, for our work in this was valued at X. And I practiced like that for the first couple of years until basically the insurance industry decided that they had a better idea, and now they went to time intervals. And it's been the bane of at least my existence ever since then. But
Probably fair to say most of our existences.
Yeah.
Yes. What about your professional life, with all of your accomplishments and wins and losses and all that has entailed? Of what are you the most proud?
Putting aside the professional association work where I had the privilege of being a leader in several of those organizations. But if we're talking just about the practice of law, of being a trial lawyer, I would say it was the willingness to stick my chin out and tell the client, I'll go in and do that. I think 6 or 7, I'd have to count them up, but it's close to that, being the lead lawyer in the first case in all those mass torts that went out, largely because some of my colleagues, good lawyers, but also probably had more sense than I did, and that is, let him go in and make all the mistakes that have to be made, and then I'll follow up. So I was the person who tried the first case in several of those MDLs, and some we did good in, and some we realized that the mock trials didn't really reveal some of the weaknesses that we had in our case. And the other thing, Chuck, as I look back on 47 years, I don't recall ever being accused by my adversary of lacking integrity and saying something that was argued to be incorrect or going back on my word. I practiced law by saying, I'm just going to say it the way it is, and clients are going to have to deal with it. They either want me to be like that or go hire someone else. So I think adherence to my sense of integrity was one of the things I'm most proud about.
Yeah, that's great. So you've been here now for a long time at Venable.
25 years.
What over those 25 years has emerged as your favorite Venable story?
I guess I thought about this when you told me what you were going to ask, and I would change the word story to experience, and that is the word I would use is acceptance. When I came to Venable, as I mentioned, I was very good friends with Jim Shea. We had started together, and so I had a sense of what this firm was about. Of course, I had competed with Venable for the better part of 1978 to 2001, 13 or so years, more than that, 23 years, excuse me.
You did it too.
Yeah, and I knew that this firm was largely, from a political standpoint, viewed at things slightly differently than I view the world. But there has not been, in a period of 25 years, despite disagreements along the way, marginal disagreements, there's always been an amazing sense of acceptance to how I want to practice and my point of view, and I think that's remarkable. It has nothing about me. It's the culture that people talk about so much here, but I believe to be true. It's if you work hard and you're good and you're a good lawyer, there's a place, there's a home here for you. And so I would use the word acceptance.
That's a good one. So and it may relate to the notion of integrity and acceptance, but if you had one piece of advice that you wanted to share with young lawyers, what would it be?
Well, I'll frame my answer this way. If I was talking to a lawyer who viewed this as something more than just a job, because I really don't have anything to say to that sort of person, because that's not how I practice law. But if you really want to be a professional, I would say then you have to make a commitment to use the phrase, the best lawyer you can be. And by that I mean you have to be constantly studying. You have to read. The associates here, I've actually shown it to them because I don't think they believed me. For the first 10 years of my practice, I read every advance sheet, every meeting, the Fed Sup, the Fed Second, and the Maryland reports. And I would, in handwritten, because we didn't have computers back then, handwrite the decisions that were relevant to my practice. Because I wanted to know that on any given day, if I was asked a question by a partner or an associate later on, that I knew what the current law was on all that. So I think in order to be a lawyer, you have to know the law. You have to continue throughout your career studying it. As my career more into science, then my practice became less law and more being current on all the scientific disciplines that I'm involved with, and there are several of those. The other thing I would say is, one thing I believe in is, you just have to be committed to work hard. So often I've seen lawyers a lot smarter than I am, a lot more talented than I am, fall by the wayside simply because they weren't willing to put the work in. And this is not to say that I'm advocating giving up relationships or families, because I happen to believe those things are absolutely essential to make you the type of lawyer that allows you to go in and talk to a jury on a person-to-person basis and convince them of the rightness of what you're trying to say. So I'm not saying that you have to be an absentee parent. I am saying that has to be part of it, but you have to be committed to put the work in.
Integrity,
Yeah.
acceptance, commitment, hard work.
Not words that some of our society likes to hear these days.
Absolutely, but certainly foundational for the type of career that you have enjoyed and that we look at with great respect. So thank you, Bruce, again for your time.
Thank
and
you.
for your thoughts and insights. We appreciate and respect you very, very much.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yep.